finally we have Selena back and loaded to present. So Selena, please take the floor.
Thank you for having me today, and I really apologize about the technical difficulty I had earlier. Singapore, as one of the fastest aging countries in the world, is acutely aware of the issues and impact of aging. Recent studies have shown that the utilization of healthcare by our elderly is 8 to 10 times more than the rest of the population. And we predict this demand will most certainly outstrip the supply or the affordability of healthcare in the coming future. And not only is the population aging, but our healthcare workers are aging too. So our agenda for healthy longevity includes strategies to enable the entire population to age well, going beyond hospital to community, beyond healthcare to health. However, we also need strategies to augment not just the human capabilities, but to promote productive longevity, creating safe workplace not only to allow older workers to work safely, but also for all to work for more years in their life. And to do so, we need to create the right ecosystem and environment to shorten the innovation cycles and to increase adoption and scaling of evidence-based solutions. And CHART, which is the Center for Healthcare, Assistive and Robotics Technology, was formed by the Ministry of Health and Economic Development Board in Singapore to look at the adoption strategies for AI-driven robotics in healthcare. Now, are we going from this to this? It may look really easy from a movie, but going from a structured infrastructure in a controlled environment to a diverse infrastructure in a dynamic environment in healthcare and in our population, factored with long regulatory pathways and protracted acceptance, it will not be something that would come straight out of a movie easily. So our earlier speakers in the course of the 2 days workshop have shown how transformation does not happen by putting people together or by creating solutions that look for problems. Many recent studies have also shown that it takes an approximate 17 years lag from the time a discovery happens to not just commercialization, but wide-scale adoption in the population. So supporting needs-driven transformation, we need to look at effective methods for adoption and scaling, not just the solution itself, and not just understanding the challenge or the problem or the need. It requires us to understand the multidisciplinary challenge of different specialties working together, different specialties understanding how they need to support each other, and understanding what this future state would be if we were to adopt certain solutions. And we also need to understand who are the key stakeholders in the adoption and scaling. And so looking to go from research and development to value creation to wide-scale deployment requires us to drive innovation and product development in a different way. And I'd like to give a few examples. First, we start with understanding our community. To put robotics out there in healthcare, it's complex, even in operating theater. But to put it out in the community, we need to have sufficient data to guide us in where we should be heading. Among other things, firstly, we created communities or health social teams and collect data about what kind of care deliveries are required from our aging population. We need to get them to keep well, to get well, to age well, and we look at certain solutions that are able to help them to do so. But we need data, we need to know where we do not have data, and then we need to know how to go about collecting those data as we implement the solution to understand if we did create the value that we wanted to. So one of them includes us creating this health management unit, which are actually telecarers, trained nurses to provide regular phone support to patients who are unable to come in to the hospitals. That include telemonitoring, teleeducation, and also care coordination to make it easier and more convenient and to nudge them along in the right healthcare behavior. And this allows us to reach out to a large population of the elderly who may or may not be connected to us digitally. Then we also discovered that beyond this group whom we can connect through the phone, there is a group who are also being isolated. And hence we created in little communities Telehealth pod, which allows our elderly to leave their homes, come down and get socialized with technology, and also allows our volunteers to work with them and understand what the elderly do look for or what are their needs when they are looking at the iPad. They are looking at connecting different devices onto themselves. And it allows us not only to collect healthcare information, but also social information and user-centric information. This allows us to reach out to a far wider group of elderly, and in connecting volunteers and elders in this way, we also create community of neighbors who will watch out for each other. One way for us to then better reach out and be inclusive for all elders in our community. And the other thing to watch out for is to understand what technology offers. So again, understanding the data, how does that guide us? And there are many solutions out there who can be used in healthcare. It could be used not only just to improve the quality of health outcomes, but could also be used to assist our aging healthcare workers to do their job better or to move or work at the top of their license. And one of the solutions that we looked at quite early on in robotics was autonomous technologies for automating logistics. And why not? After all, we do not need doctors and nurses to be pottering things around. They could provide clinical care whilst all these autonomous solutions could be brought in from factories that have already successfully applied them in the factory space. However, we discovered in doing so that there were also challenges. It would be okay if there is only one robot and one fleet. But when we started to have more different types of robots, there were issues with communication between the different fleets and also communication between the fleets and the building, and communication issues between the IT systems and the robotic systems. And in doing so, we discovered that to help in the scaling and adoption, we would need to have a comprehensive middleware to allow for the robots and the IT system to be optimized in its utilization. And it also includes, for example, the ability for the robots to be able to be called in at the shortest possible time. And this now allows us to incorporate these requirements into guidelines such that new facilities that are being built could incorporate these requirements, and that help us in our adoption and scaling in Singapore. Now, beyond just building infrastructure enablers that we talk about, we also need to build libraries to understand the impact of technology to care. And beyond measuring the impact of how technologies that help us, for example, in this particular research in which patients who had extended intubation periods in the ICU during the COVID pandemic, how we could use robotic therapy to not only help them to recover faster, but it actually helps us in our productivity because we do not need as many human therapists to help in the situation. So we also collected quite a fair bit of productivity indexes. We need to understand what our staff needs. And in doing so, we need to collect information, data again, and let the data guide us about what's available in the, what is needed in the environment, and how does this interact through human robot interfaces. And in doing so, that helps us to guide us in our user-centric designs. And what we now do is to build not just the environment to collect the data, we simulate this so that it's easier for the staff to understand what they are working with and to be able to use the applications in the most effective, efficient, and even cost-effective way. This simulation not only allows us to build a living lab in a physical environment, it also allows us to look at sandboxes and virtual test farms. So now we not only look at the application, the functionalities, its impact, but we capture the value in terms of how it can be integrated with other solutions. And in closing, I would like to say that a lot of the technologies and opportunities out there, we learn them by partnering with an entire ecosystem. It's the humans that we talk to, the humans that we work with, that will give us the data and guide us in understanding what the opportunities and gaps are. And we are not alone. Thank you.